I'm Caitlin Ellis, the Stacktown Insider, Rogue Edition, Corona Chronicles, and today I have a very special guest. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I want to thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time. Can you please tell our audience your name and a little bit about you?
So my name is Ashley Partch, and I'm the owner of Partch Portraits. I'm a photographer that works in boudoir portraits, and I do everything but weddings and behind the scenes of film sets.
And can you please tell our audience next what inspired you to get into this industry?
So I have had a camera in my hand since I was little. My grandma actually started it. She's the reason why I even have photography in my blood. She's always had like a camera around the house, and I used to pretend to play pictures all the time. But I just love the beauty of being able to capture what nobody else could. Like seeing people smile was the reason what got me into this.
And I've seen a lot of your work, and we've actually worked together. You do a beautiful job, so it's great to see during this time you're still doing some work. Can you please tell our audience, for anybody looking to get into this industry, what advice would you give?
Definitely look into the camera gear that you are going to be working with and look into what you like to do. So if you like taking pictures of people and you feel like it's just a hobby, well, then it could just be a hobby. Just leave it as is and enjoy it. But if you want to go into this full time, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. You need to know the costs, the repercussions, how many no's you're going to get versus how many yeses you're going to get. You may get 10 no's, but one yes, and that one yes leads you to everything.
And during this time, people in their different industries have been affected in different ways. How have you specifically been affected by COVID-19 at the beginning as well as now?
So in the beginning, they completely shut down photographers 100% in the county. So I was not able to actually help people because of the studio settings. So I had to close down my studio and had to start working remotely. Luckily for me, I started off remotely. I started off going to people's homes and taking pictures in parks, and doing the 6 feet rule was not really that hard of a thing, but that was just for portraits. When I started working behind the scenes, rules changed. COVID-19 made things more difficult. So when I worked on film sets, it made it very hard to actually be around actors. You had to have that 6 feet rule. You had to follow standard protocols, wearing a mask at all times, having to coordinate with not only the director, but now you have to coordinate with the COVID officer to make sure that all regulations are in place. And with having a camera, all of my lenses were the small shorts. Then I had to get my zooms, and I was like, let's go. Got to pick up that power, got to get a faster camera, got to keep shooting even when it was dark. So I had to make sure I was on top of it. And right now, the industry is opening back up. So companies I used to work with are coming back through again, like Netflix is coming back through, and they're like, hey, so what area are you in? How can we start doing this? Have you spoke to our COVID officers yet? And it's about the same, but with the no mask mandate, I still keep the 6 feet distance. I still maintain the rules and regulations of my industry to make sure that both me and my clients are safe. And that goes as well into my portrait sessions too. Families, maternities, babies, you want everybody to be safe. So it's actually taught me how to work outside of my original niches.
And in lieu of COVID-19, what are some of the things you've been working on? I know it's great to hear that you've kept busy during this time, especially.
So I actually became a COVID officer myself in order to keep in the industry, because they stopped letting photographers in. They started saying that they're going to use the stills versus using the movie stuff. So I became a COVID officer to find out, what's going on, states in the industry, stay within my niche, still keep my connections open. I am working a lot of maternities right now, and then now that everything's opening back up, I have specials and sales, and my longtime clients are calling me back going, hey, graduation's coming up. What do you say about doing a session? And I'm traveling from anywhere between Sacramento to LA for sessions again. So I'm happy about that coming back through.
And kind of as a fun fact, how do you balance being, a photographer and also a COVID compliance officer? That's interesting to hear that you're now doing that.
I was doing it for about 6 months when I lived in LA. The COVID officer compliancy, I worked underneath a company. My longtime best friend, Naomi, she's actually the one who started the company for COVID compliance. So I went with her and worked in a couple of studio records and other LA niches. There's one called In the Desert that's coming out. It's won a couple of awards. And we worked as COVID officers for them. And I actually got to work as a behind the scenes photographer for her. So I was extremely happy with that and making that connection with her as well. But it's a balancing act. You got to make sure you get all your dates correct and all of your stuff in line. Like I make sure that I've got things booked out at least no less than like 2 months out. Anything before that, it's going in the notes and I'm calling them back. All right, let me send my intern your way. Let me talk to another associate I know. If there's another photographer I can help you out with. If somebody cancels, I call them back. I can take you. Let's go. So it's a balancing act.
Although, with your job already being a fun task, but also kind of, time consuming, that's great to see that you've basically joined this industry of helping other people, making sure everybody's safe and rules are followed. So that's great to hear. At this time, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Maybe something you're working on in the future or now?
Yeah. If you're thinking about getting into the industry with COVID being like still in place, because we're probably going to be living in this for quite a while, just remember that even though we can work 6 feet apart from somebody, you still have to remember that there are people who are not going to want to listen, who are not going to want to be compliant. You are going to get all sorts of kinds of people in this industry. And the nice part is just roll with the punches. Take every job that you can with the respect that they gave you in the beginning and follow through to the end. Take every bit of it and just enjoy every role that you get. Every time that somebody calls you, okay, how can I help you? How are you going? Look at what's coming up next. Try to predict things. Like I had no idea I was going to have to buy a brand new zoom lens, and they're not cheap. I use a Sony, so my camera system is I at any point carry anywhere between 2,000 to about $15,000 in gear with me at all times, depending on the session that I have to do. So adding that new zoom lens, that was an $800 expense that I was like, you know what? Let's go. Let's get it done. Let's keep my clients safe. Let's make sure that this gets like set up correctly. So you have to know what your costs are and what your revenue is coming into it. So just take it as it goes. And life will throw curveballs.
That's great to hear, during this time you're still working, and actually thank you for the advice. Because a lot of, it feels like during this time for especially artists like us, things change, last minute or day to day. So that's good. With you've had little things like that where you had to get a zoom lens to keep everybody safe. So it's good to hear kind of what you're doing during this time. But if anybody wants to follow more of your journey and see what you're working on, where can they find you?
Partch Portraits on Facebook, Instagram, and I've got my website back up again. So one of the things that hit me was that when COVID actually hit, there was some clientele that, had to drop, and my website suffered for it. But it's back up and running, so you can find it at Partch Portraits at strikingly.com. It works perfectly. You can message me through there, or you can even send me a message through Facebook. If you send me something through Facebook, I'm gonna respond immediately. It pops up into all of my systems, even connected to my phone. So I will get that faster than I will get anything through email.
Thank you. And it's great to hear again you're working during this time. I hope you have a successful 2022. I want to thank you again for joining us. I'm Caitlin Ellis with the Sacktown Insider, Rogue Edition, Corona Chronicles.